This is a story that is still written with ice and snow. For millions of years, the mountain ranges that define the Jerte Valley in southwest Spain are covered with snow, which in spring transforms into a colossal erosive force in the form of torrents, a liquid energy that sustains at the same time the splendor of its natural life and the prosperity of this unique valley, where every year a show that is unique in Europe takes place. The flowering of 2 million cherry trees. This territory, which used to be all ice, snow and rock, is today the kingdom of mountain goats. Here, winter still resists being defeated by the ever closer spring. Spring will bring the time of greatest agitation in nature, when most species struggle to get a partner in which to raise their offspring. However, it is not so for these species, which can only be found in the Iberian Peninsula. The clash of the formidable antlers of males deciding their primacy over females has not been heard for several months now. Now life in the herd goes by smoothly, waiting for the birth of a new generation of mountain goats already in the middle of spring. Further down, the Jerte Valley is also waiting. It is waiting for the spring sun to melt the snow that crowns it on the mountain ranges, for these hillsides to be filled with energy, where thousands of cherry trees are now dormant because of the winter. What will happen next is so spectacular that you will never forget it. The river that gives its name and life to this valley with its transparent blood originates from the confluence of 2 streams at the foot of the Campagna cliff. Already from its very beginning it lives up to its Arab denomination Sherit, deriving into Jerte, which means narrow river or also crystalline river. In the barely 50 kilometers separating it from its mouth, the river Jerte descends about 1,200 meters of altitude, with a torrential energy capable of breaking through granite walls. Not all the cracks that outline the Jerte landscape have been the work of natural agents. This tungsten mine ceased its activity many years ago. Its most splendid times were around World War II, when tungsten was essential for the war industry. Voices of miners and the noise of picks pulling this metal that was so precious because of its scarcity were extinguished, giving way to the never-ending whisper of water caressing its walls. The mine was abandoned by human beings, but it has not stopped being useful. In fact, it now fulfills a new function. Road motel for cave paths. This species, which is present throughout southern Europe, spends winter in shelters where thousands of individuals gather. Migration begins with the arrival of spring towards their different breeding places, a journey that can be quite long and hard, so they stop at shelters like this mine to take a break before continuing on their way in search of a partner. The prodigy is about to occur. A natural event that, given its peculiarity, turns Jerte into a unique valley in the whole world. Its awakening to the spring will make the color white omnipresent. It is the flowering of cherry trees. The cherry trees of the Jerte and surrounding valleys make the region Extremadura the leading exporter of cherries in the European Union. But by itself, all this splendor would be a sterile waste of natural energy without the cooperation of love messengers among flowers. And without a doubt, the most efficient in this task are bees. Taming honey bees has undoubtedly been one of the great achievements of human beings. A millenarian relationship that goes back to the very beginnings of agriculture. Generation after generation, beekeepers have taken care of their hives. In exchange, they receive not only honey, but also wax, royal jelly, pollen or propolis, which is an excellent natural antibiotic. Each of these hives houses up to 80,000 bees, a genuine army of efficient and inexhaustible workers that now in spring experience their most active moment. While there is light, collecting bees fly restlessly looking for nectar, which they then bring to the hive along with pollen balls attached to their legs. Here they give it to their sisters, who are responsible for turning it into honey. Other bees have the task of building cells with wax, cleaning or caring for the larvae, the future of their community. They form a team where each one fulfills its mission, which revolves around the queen bee. Her bulging abdomen and larger size distinguishes the queen bee, although it would be more appropriate to call her mother bee, for that is her only function. All the bees in the hive are her daughters. Each day she lays about 2,000 eggs while she is looked after, cared for and nourished by her descendants. Unfertilized eggs will give rise to drones, and those who are fertilized will result in working bees. When the need arises for a new mother bee for the hive, the working bees build a queen's cradle with wax. Here they deposit a larva and royal jelly to feed. 16 days later, a new queen bee will emerge. In the few weeks of life of a working bee, it will barely produce a teaspoon of honey. To obtain a kilo, a hive will have to fly a distance equivalent to almost 3 times the circumference of the Earth. It is an enormous task that bees work very hard at. When these working bees return to the hive, not only do they bring nectar and pollen back from the lavender flowers, they also bring information. They will perform a dance to inform the others of the direction and distance of the food source they have found. Their cousins, the robust bumblebees, share a passion for the nectar and pollen of flowers. They also live in society around a queen, but with many fewer individuals. Partly because of the hair on their body and partly because of the electrostatic charge, bumblebees end up covered with pollen, which they then transfer to receptacles that they have on their back legs, after moistening it with water and nectar. As a new example of the teamwork that governs the life of bees, when a working bee visits a flower, not only does it extract the nectar and helps in its pollination, it also leaves a pheromone with which it warns the others that they will not find anything there. The buzz of bees is the symbol of the prosperity of crops. In fact, the markets of Great Britain and many other countries where they are highly prized would not receive hearty cherries without the help of bees. If the biodiversity of pollinators disappeared, it is more than likely that our way of life would be seriously threatened. These dense masses of cherry trees are an ideal place also for the Eurasian blue-tit. They are very busy with their courtship, going from one branch to the other in these early days of spring. Then the female will be in charge of building the nest in hollows of trees, or between stones where they will lay from 6 to 13 eggs. Raising such a large family is a blessing for the environment. Eurasian blue-tits are voracious insectivores, so their presence helps to contain potential pests or parasites. The water determines the landscape of the Jerte Valley, its beauty and splendor of natural life. An uncontrollable force that is both a tireless rock carver and source of life. Spurred by the steep slope, many streams of water cross the slopes of the valley, offering the torrential energy that encourages a wild, fertile, and seductive nature. Away from the rigours of the summits that crown the Jerte Valley, a dense deciduous forest grows on its slopes, where the Iberian oak is king. They are accompanied by chestnut trees, planted here by humans to take advantage of their fruits and wood, or survivors of other climatic times such as holly. At its feet, spring covers the undergrowth with the yellow flowers of brooms or purple lavender, a magnet for insects. In this silent but bitter dispute to attract pollinators, peonies have developed a winning strategy: generosity. The species that grows in these forests is endemic to the Iberian Peninsula and is also known as the Rose of Alexandria. Each plant generates very few flowers, so they must be irresistible. Their size and colour are naturally powerful calls for the many hungry diners who swarm in the forest. But in addition, peonies ensure their collaboration by offering an abundant share of pollen. Everyone is welcome, and everyone gets their share at the banquet, ensuring the host's pollination. When it reaches the lower part of the valley, flanked by cherry-covered terraces, the river Jerte seems to take a break. Its momentum calms down and extends its course. The fury of the granite sculptor is transformed into quiet tenacity, on which the riverbank forest grows. Salamanders live in the shade of alders, poplars, ash trees and willows. Although they like humidity, they spend their life on land and only go into the water to give birth. The small salamanders are born as semi-developed larvae that will complete their metamorphosis here. After fulfilling their maternal mission, salamanders return to their quiet existence, guaranteed by the striking design of their skin. Everyone here understands what it means: danger, poisoned food. These western spadefoot toad larvae have also had to watch their own back from birth. After depositing up to 4,000 eggs, females leave the water to return to their usual environment, sandy or little compacted places where they can be buried without difficulty. Their tadpoles find everything they need to grow in these water masses, and they do it conscientiously, as they are the largest larvae of all the toads and frogs that inhabit the Iberian Peninsula. Helped by a striky horny beak, they feed on a varied diet that includes animal and plant remains, microorganisms, other amphibians, or small crustaceans. That is, provided there is enough for all, because if this food is scarce due to overpopulation or because of a reduction in the size of the pond, spadefoot toad tadpoles do not hesitate to indulge in cannibalism by attacking their counterparts. The pond where young spadefoot toads thrive is also a place where bees gather. They need water, both to hydrate themselves and dilute the honey to take it to the hive. There they will put it in empty cells for other colleagues to use, and also to turn it into a peculiar air conditioning. Waving their wings, it evaporates, thus reducing the internal temperature of the hive. But obtaining it can become a deadly trap. The inhabitants of the pond inquisitively approach the bee that is frantically struggling to survive. Perhaps the tadpoles intuitively know that sooner rather than later it will become another meal to take to their mouth. In one of the clearings that open in the deciduous forests of the Jerte, the early purple orchid has also been awakened by spring. This orchid species offers a spectacular flowering, with colours ranging from pink to intense purple, to seduce insects. In Spanish, it is also called male orchid because its subterranean part resembles a pair of testicles. The orchid family is an impressive example of success in nature. More than 25,000 species of wild orchids have emerged in the last 80 million years, which makes them one of the most important numerous flowering plant families. There are orchids in all continents and practically in all habitats. Here and there, early purple orchids with white flowers seek their place in the sun to transmit their genes, something that should not be easy for them. Getting a pollinator with such pale resources compared with the exuberant colouring displayed by its sisters seems like a task that is nearly impossible. Although they share the same environment, foxgloves do not like open spaces as early purple orchids do. They prefer to grow among stones at the side of paths and in shady places, highlighting even more the colour of their clusters of flowers, which have given them their popular name. These forested and elevated slopes of the Jerte Valley are also the preferred territory of the scrubland cricket. This young male is not yet fully developed, so it will have to wait to find a female to breed. Meanwhile, it explores the territory in search of food, protected by its colour, which offers a very good camouflage. It likes mostly plant remains, but it does not reject those of animal origin. It absolutely loves the eggs of other insects, such as those of processionary moths. Next to the leaves that have just emerged, a peculiar structure with a silky appearance appears in the branches of some oaks. Its builders are the oak processionaries. They go through various growth stages to become butterflies, and they do everything in a group. Together they feed on tender leaves of the host tree. Together they move from branch to branch, generating a silk thread that serves as a guide. And together they weave bags where they take refuge and rest. When they reach their last phase of growth, they will also lock up and each will weave their own chrysalis where they will become a butterfly. The mountainous landscape of the Jerte Valley has a superb symbol, alive for at least 500 years. Its majestic appearance and the volume of its treetop, which rises more than 20 meters from the ground, make the Carriadero oak one of the most valuable of its kind in the whole Iberian Peninsula, if not the most. This magnificent tree could shelter up to 1,000 sheep. The habit of gathering the herds that pastured on the estate under its benevolent shade has given its name to this portentous living being, where nature and history are intertwined. A number of streams join forces as they descend to the bottom of the valley, giving rise to spaces of enormous beauty, such as the Garganta de los Infiernos, which in Spanish means the Gorge of Hell. The roar of waterfalls, defying the solidity of the stone, suffocates any other sound of the forest that surrounds them. The force of the torrent has managed to carve the rock, creating peculiar formations of great beauty that are popularly known as pilones. In geology, these circular-shaped depressions are called giant marmites. They are the result of the erosive work of water on the enormous block of granite that sustains all this landscape since the Ice Age, when the Jerte Valley began to outline the features that make it so unique. The abundant presence of common trout in these waters is the best guarantee of its optimal state. To grow, These fish require fresh, clean, well-oxygenated waters with abundant food, and they are not very fussy. Common trout is an opportunistic diner that feeds on what the river offers wherever it lives, from larvae and insect nymphs to small fish. The isolation that favors the abrupt orography of the Jerte Valley has led trout living in its water currents not to be crossbred with foreign trout and thus retain great genetic purity. Spring is a busy time for the many different species of butterflies that fly in the Jerte Valley. After leaving the chrysalis, their life is not usually very long, so they are urged to find a partner with whom to breed. The banks of the water courses that meander in the Gorge of Hell offer an unbeatable place where butterflies can drink and also obtain salts and other minerals that are essential for their well-being more easily, as they absorb them with their long trunk. Around 250,000 species make up the family of butterflies and moths, making it the second largest in the world, only behind the beetle family. A fragile gift of color and beauty to make spring even more beautiful. This ringed lizard cannot disguise its agitation. He is looking for a female. This is revealed by the intense color of its skin. But first, it must reach an appropriate body temperature, which is achieved by standing in the sun at the entrance of its den. During this zeal period, males of the largest saurian in the Iberian Peninsula are especially territorial and aggressive with other competitors. But not reckless. Any small sign of danger convinces them that it is better to hide. The highest part of the Jerte Valley is a territory that is only suitable for the most resistant. Between granite blocks, bushes such as brooms, shrubs and heather thrive, grazing grassy patches where wild horses graze. These herds live here all year long, never treading a stable or receiving any kind of care. They are Potoka breed horses, whose genetic origins go back to prehistoric times, when cavemen decorated their caves with drawings of their ancestors. Favored by their robust complexion and determined character, Potokas have chosen these heights as a good place to live in full freedom. The presence of horses is a real gift for other inhabitants in this environment, such as dung beetles. For someone who feeds on manure, the passing by of herds must be something like a dream come true. But this species of beetle does not use manure only as food. They also manufacture balls with it that they take to their nest to make incubators for females to deposit their eggs in. Breeding is a more agitated process among the wild horses of Jerte. In spring, stallions sniff the air, always eager to perceive the scent that indicates that one of the mares in their herd is in heat. But perceiving that smell does not entail that the female who emits it is receptive. It will only be receptive for a few days when it is fertile. Until then, it will not allow the stallion to approach. And it will do so as energetically and dangerously to the health of its suitor. Spring is moving forward, and the flowers, aided by insects, have already fulfilled their mission. Now they must give way to the fruits. The gusts of wind slide in through the Jerte cherry trees, striping the white of their branches to cover the ground with a shower of petals, providing a new natural show of unheard of beauty. The wind is another invaluable collaborator of plants when it comes to spreading new life. At the bottom of the valley where the riverside forests grow, the air and water is filled with cottony travellers. Thistledown, a broad number of plants, from dandelions or thistles to the imposing poplars and willows, have developed this ingenious natural mechanism that endows their seeds with a hair covering with different shapes but a single objective: to fly with the wind. The further, the better. They set off in search of new places to thrive, wrapping the landscape with a silky frost that is warm and fertile. Mountain goats continue their peaceful existence in the highest and inaccessible rocky areas of the Jerte Valley. Meanwhile, a little further down, their domestic relatives start their day in search of fresh food. Since ancient times, cattle has strong roots in the Jerte Valley as the best way to make sustainable use of its rugged terrain. Also, its paths and hills have been a traditional walkway for the transhuman flocks of sheep and cows throughout history. As spring moves forward, the deciduous forests of the Jerte Valley stand in their greatest splendor. Its soil is covered with a uniform green mantle of ferns. Meanwhile, the rays of an increasingly powerful sun can barely squeeze between the density of the tops of Pyrenean oaks and old chestnuts, who already show their flowers, an unmistakable sign that summer is approaching. Further evidence of the imminent change of season is being experienced by the inhabitants of these forests. The midday heat forces crowds of birds to gather on ponds or streams where they can get some relief. Those who do seem to enjoy the heat that comes from the sky are mosquitoes. They turn the air of the Jerte afternoons into a chaotic dance scene, without beginning or end. It is the dance that announces the summer. If white was the forerunner of spring in the Jerte Valley with the flowering of cherry trees, summer also has its own hue to announce its arrival. The dazzling red colour of its fruits in season that will soon fill the markets in Europe. Spring in the Valley of Cherry Trees promises learning about the explosion of wildlife, discovering creations made by water, and admiring a unique landscape.